Welcome, everybody, to our second week of questions people are asking me now. Every week on Thursday evening, when we get together, and hopefully within a half an hour, we will address 3 questions that people are asking. Welcome to everybody watching on Facebook. Welcome to everybody on Zoom. And I will begin. First, we will open our, I'll bring up the PowerPoint on the screen, but the 3 questions for this week are as follows. Number 1, if Judaism is timeless, or Torah is timeless, show me a source about Twitter. And I thought this was a joke. I thought someone was just trying to play a trick on me, saying, okay, show me a source about Twitter. Obviously, the word Twitter is not mentioned anywhere in classic sources. But then I got on the phone with this person. He said, yes, he's serious. He said, one of the biggest problems facing the world right now is everybody has become uber sensitive. Everybody has just taken everything to the greatest. Microaggression can insult anybody. And he even pointed out to me an exchange. An exchange went as follows. Somebody said something about a hot topic, and someone else said, oh, so you're saying that, and it had nothing to do with it. This person mentioned something about a certain movement. I'm not going to mention or get into it because I don't want to, for the reasons that we're discussing, I don't want to, welcome Alex, I don't want to get into the topic itself. But there was a certain movement that really is doing a lot of good stuff. It's saving people and helping people. And this person said, I just want to alert you that this movement also does X, Y, and Z. So the response there was, oh, so you're saying that all of those people that these people are helping, they could just die. That's not what he said. But what's happening is people are saying something. People are discussing things with a lot of nuance, and nuance has gone out the window. And everybody is losing their plot. And he asked me, what is the solution to that? Second question is the question a lot of people have in their mind, not always bothering them, but people come to me a lot of times, say, why is it that traditional shuls still have a Mechitza separating men and women? Wouldn't it be better to sit together and pray as a family? And question number 3, fear of God. Really? Today? Sounds like a bully. Isn't scaring people into doing things a sign of insecurity? Why is fear of God even a thing? So we will try to address these 3 questions now, and you can set your clocks. I'll do the same thing just to make sure I behave and I'm true to my word. So starting the clock now. So on to the first question. Judaism is timeless. What does it have to say about Twitter and what it's doing to society? I don't know if anyone recognizes this, but sometimes this is what Twitter feels like. Ring a bell a little bit. Sometimes that's what it feels like when we go on Twitter and we go on social media and you see all the comments and it looks like everybody's ready to kill. And in fact, in my own life, I've met people who have written things on Twitter, and those things have been really nice people in real life. What is it that triggers such kind of responses? Now that wasn't Twitter, but that's what Twitter feels like. Look at the guy on the left, so angry. And look what happens. Why is it? And everybody is, now what does Judaism have to say about that? And the insight that I found is actually going to be quite incredible. So does this resonate with you? Anyone seen this? I'm going to leave it for a second. If anyone's seen this cartoon, it's an old one. It's long before Twitter, but it started when internet forums started. Are you coming to bed? No, I can't. This is important. Why? What's going on? Someone's wrong on the internet. I got to take care of this. Sometimes we feel that. Do you ever read a comment online and someone's written something really stupid You don't even know who that person is, but yet you feel you've got to answer. Where does this come from? Why is this happening? And I think if we just knew what the cause was, we'd be able to catch it in our own head before we fall down into it, before we fall into the slippery slope. And I'm going to show you two incredible quotes. One is from the Kuzari, written in the 1100s. The Kuzari is a book that is written by Rabbi Yehuda Halevi. And this is a book based on, there is a story, I'm not going to get into it, about the Kuzarim, who were a kingdom in Northern Europe. And the story goes, and it's not completely verified, I'm not going to get into it, we can have another class about the Khazar's fascinating story, but that the king and the entire nation converted to Judaism after having debates with different religions. They chose Judaism as legitimate. So Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, he used this as a backdrop for a fascinating book called the Kuzari, in which he talks about different faith debates or different, and addressing a lot of questions about Jewish faith, and he answers them really eloquently. You can get it in English. It's actually a fascinating read. And the other one is Imre Bino, which is a book written by Dobber Shneuri, the Mittler Rebbe, the second Chabad Rebbe in the 1800s. And it talks about certain ideas, Kabbalistic ideas of Jewish practice and of the creation of the world and the human soul's relationship with it, etc. I'm not going to get into it now, but these are the two sources. And each of these sources, I can give you the sources later, but I'm going to paraphrase. I'm not going to read everything through to be able to keep time, and it's very interesting what they do. The Kuzari is explaining why Judaism, the oral law, why Judaism had an oral law. When the Torah was given, along with the written Torah, came an oral tradition. Most of Judaism was explained orally, in words, in the spoken words, from Moses to the people. And then at the end of the day, they would have a lecture, and like the Torah, the written Torah is like the notes to that lecture. So he goes on to explain why most of it was conveyed orally, and they didn't even write it down. It was all had to be given orally to maintain that this tradition was handed down person to person, face to face. Imre Bino talks about the written word, and we're going to see how these two combine and how they exactly, between these two texts, describe the problem that's happening on social media. Watch. So let's go to the first text. He talks about the objectives of speech. What is the purpose of speech? It's transmissions of thoughts and feelings from the soul of the speaker to the soul of the listener. When someone is speaking to you, you can hear pauses, flows, emphasis, emotion, astonishment, questioning, a certain narrative, the way he constructs it, the way things are said. When someone talks face to face, there is so much that gets non-verbal communication that's going on that the written word would take volumes to convey, especially when there's nuance. Remember that word. And it's become a big buzzword today because everyone's on Twitter wondering where's the nuance. A lot of nuance comes when you see the person in front of you. You get to know which kind of person you're talking to. You get to picture who it is on the other side of the conversation. And a lot of the important information is conveyed face to face. I mean, you wouldn't want to go to a surgeon who didn't have an oral tradition from another surgeon telling him how to be a surgeon. If a guy says, "Oh yeah, I'll do your brain surgery for you. Have you done it before?" "No, but I read all the books and I know them really well." You wouldn't trust a surgeon like that for a minute. You want the surgeon to have the oral tradition. So the same thing, spoken word. What's the objective of the written word? This is the Imre Bino. It says transmission of thought and feeling. The written word, I'm going to go straight to the text. Sorry, there's a problem with this. He says to accurately commit to writing ideas that one has received. Writing entails repeated drafts, erasing, revising, until the idea is properly elucidated without having strayed from the point. Much effort is needed, on the other hand, to verbally articulate and expand upon the idea. Why is this so? Because the written word is highly defined and delineated, more so than the articulated word. The more an idea is defined, the less it can tolerate any idea that is inconsistent with its message. Therefore, thought and effort must be invested into writing to ensure that the message is precise, unclouded by anything that might detract from it. The written word is thus the purest and truest form of expression with no extraneous missing detail. What are these two things? The written word, face-to-face, its qualities, look on the left, ultimate revelation. You get to see the person, visual cues, tonal cues, but it's flexible. You can talk to somebody and negotiate your way in your conversations, if you know what I mean. The conversation can flow and you can be brief as well and concise in your speech. I can't, I'm a rabbi. Rabbis never talk quickly, trying to. It's personal, it's expressive. It's for deep or subtle communication. Teaching, conflict resolution, you could use it for examples, intimate conversation, friendly conversation, and discussion and debate. Quick back and forths of nuanced ideas that you can do quickly or in a proper discussion. The written word is about precision. You want to document something for eternity, for time immemorial, but it needs detailed accuracy, and you need to be elaborate. The more nuanced something is, the more you need to write. It's for deep communication and for detailed communication, like legal documents, theses, or a note that you can keep forever, like a little keepsake, and reminders that say, okay, dentist at 4 p.m., put it on the fridge. That's the written word, but really the written word, when you're conveying an idea, it needs to really have revisions and revisions. But what happened? Yeah, the written word, then we went on to email. It's fine, as long as you write the email like you write a letter, but we started writing emails quickly. And all people started getting upset, even at work, when you write an email the wrong way. Then there's and then from there you move on to Twitter. Twitter takes the entire idea, shortens it to 140 characters. What happens then? Imagine, could you even speak about these things in 140 characters, about some of the most nuanced things? And that's when you know the person face to face. Imagine writing to somebody you've never heard of, ever, and you can't even see, and you're conveying something that dividing the whole world, and you have to reduce it to 140 characters. You're taking the spoken word, but you're writing it. You're using the written word in a manner that is designed for spoken word. Written word, our bodies, our brains, and the science of writing is supposed to be detailed and accurate and revised. And yet we're going in 140 characters. We're just dealing with something very, very, very nuanced, and we lose. So what happens is the other person on the other side doesn't know who you're talking to, doesn't get your emotions, doesn't see who you are. And it's an emotive problem. They blow up. And you also, when we read something that someone wrote, if we sat with them in the bar, chances are, and they spoke to us and they chatted, we might have an argument with them a little bit, but it won't be the same way. But they are writing in the way that you're supposed to speak. And this is what's happening in the world right now. So I'm not here to fix the world's problems. I was asked about These are two sources that clearly define the problem that we have today. I'm not going to fix it. But if every one of us is just aware of that when we are communicating electronically, I think our lives will be a lot easier. Question number 2. Why separate seating in the synagogue? Won't it be better to experience Judaism together as a family? This is a question that a lot of people have as well. And I'm going to say a few things here. First of all, before I go on to this one question, before I get into it 100%, I just want to say one thing. There are two issues. One is, what is the Mechitza? Why is there a separation? Why don't we sit together as a family? And that we'll focus on today. And there's another question is about the role of women in Judaism, which I cannot do both in 10 minutes, and we will save that for another class. So first we have to understand where did the idea of sitting together as a family start from? Now, according to Jonathan Sarna, what happened was the family unit before the Industrial Revolution, we all lived together and we worked on the farm and we saw each other, and then the family unit started to break down when people started to go away for work, sometimes for weeks on end. So the family unit had to be preserved. So what happened was, churches started doing a family pew. You come together in the church. Or he writes, the overwhelming move to adopt family seating stems from great changes in history. Family was weakening, and the family came to be the refuge. And this whole idea of almost like a cultish idea of a movement coming to preserve the family with, it was called the cult of domesticity, to strengthen the family. And because the Industrial Revolution was making such a change. So one of these things to preserve the family was the pews, to emphasize the importance of family life and to demonstrate that religion stands behind and values the family. Now, if you take those 2 points, you would say, obviously, Judaism believes in the importance of family, and Judaism stands behind it. So pray together. Well, religion should be practiced together, should it not? And well, that is where we have to understand the difference between Judaism and all other religions. Now, in Judaism in general, before the religion, unlike other religions, Judaism is not a synagogue-based religion. In fact, Samson Raphael Hirsch, who we see on the right here, he wanted to close synagogues for 100 years. Look what he writes. He is the father of modern orthodoxy or contemporary orthodoxy. If I had the power, I would provisionally close all synagogues for 100 years, he says. He says, do not fear, Jewish heart, because what would happen if I did that? Jews and Jewesses without fit synagogues, desiring to remain Jews and Jewesses, would be forced to concentrate on Jewish life and a Jewish home. The Jewish officials connected with the synagogue would have to look the opportunity now open, only opportunity open to them, to teach young and old how to live a Jewish life and how to build a Jewish home. And he goes further, look what he says at the end. All synagogues closed by Jewish hands would constitute the strongest protest against the abandonment of Torah in home and life. And he goes on to say, basically, what's happened is we've quarantined God in the synagogue. Synagogue isn't a place that synagogue is a place you go to pray. That's one of the things we do as Jews, and you have to pray with a minyan, so you come together. But it's not that it's a synagogue-based religion. Judaism is experienced mainly in the home. It's in the home where the parents tell the child to kiss the mezuzah and teach Jewish values. It's around the Shabbat table and the Seder table where the traditions are passed on. It's in the living, breathing examples of that. He's saying it's the synagogues which are killing that, because we're not doing any of the things that we're supposed to be doing. And we're just saying, all right, we're outsourcing our religion to the synagogue. And when he says the house, he even says that now, so in Judaism, unlike other religions, Jewish life, the center of Jewish life is in the home, not in the synagogue. So the experiencing of the religion together as a family, that happens at home. It doesn't have to happen in the synagogue. And in fact, and when Judaism is weakened, the fact that you actually say, you know what, don't experience Judaism as a family here in the synagogue, that you do at home. That's one step in preserving the family relationship with a religion at home, is by making sure that it's not done in the synagogue. Okay, that's one level. There's a famous saying that communities where Judaism is centered around the home, the synagogues are full. Communities where Judaism is centered around the synagogues are empty. But that's number one. But okay, so you don't have to, because all right, fine, we don't need the synagogues for family to experience religion together. But why not? Why shouldn't we do it anyway? Why shouldn't we? Susie, I'm going to answer your question afterwards. We'll stay on for questions. Why shouldn't we just continue to pray? Well, okay, so we don't need to because we can experience it as a family at home, but why not? Now, in order to understand that, we have to understand about Jewish prayer. If you remember last week, I said that a lot of English words that we use to describe Jewish concepts are actually words that were designed not to describe Jewish concepts, but Christian ones. This is a Christian country, and English is the words in English are predominantly used to define the Christian equivalent. So to pray in English, the etymology, that means to beg. You're asking this awesome God for something. In Hebrew, the word tefillah, praying, is to connect. It's to know God. If you've ever been into the synagogue, it says, da lifnei miata omed, know in front of whom you stand. The word da, to know, and knowledge, is about connection. It says, Adam knew Eve. What does it mean he knew Eve? They were intimate, and it says the word knowledge. It's about an intimate bond with Hashem. You and God with an intimate bond. Having, at that point, you're coming to the synagogue, and you're going there to have this intimate connection with God himself. And for that reason, Judaism calls prayer a service of the heart, that this is where you work on your mind to focus and intimately connect with your Father in heaven and appreciate what he's done and have that reconnection and forge that strong relationship. So if you're forging an intimate relationship with Hashem at this time, you cannot have any other focuses, which is why in a synagogue, you're not supposed to have any imagery or windows at eye level because you don't want any distractions, pictures. We don't even kiss our children in the synagogue. Judaism, which compares the love of God to us like a father to a child, and uses love of our children as the best imagery, is saying that we don't kiss our children in the synagogue. Why? And there's other rules in synagogue life as well. Designs, artwork have to be placed above eye level. Like I said before, drawings won't pray with the neck downwards. You don't pray in front of a mirror. And in fact, Jewish law says, even though in the morning you're not supposed to eat before you've prayed, but if your hunger is going to distract you, you eat before you go to the synagogue. Because at the synagogue, the only thoughts on your mind should be your intimate bond and connection with Hashem. And therefore, even though technically or strictly we shouldn't eat, you eat first so that you shouldn't be distracted. Like someone says, better to pray, to eat so you can pray, rather than praying to eat. So when you're praying, thinking, oh, I can't wait to finish because I got the food, I'm hungry. Eat first. And when you pray, nothing else should be on your mind. And people meditate before davening, so to clean their minds, to clear their minds and open their minds to this connection. Now, it's difficult to have an intimate emotional connection with anybody when you're focusing on two things. That's number one, even with your children. But how much more so if you're going there even with your love, or if you're your child, you're trying to connect, your child starts tapping you, daddy, daddy, daddy. It's distracting. And could you do this while cuddling with your spouse? Synagogue is not a place we go to connect with our families. Afterwards, in the Kiddush, there's the socializing. Synagogue is not a place we go to come as a family and experience it together. It's a one-on-one personal bond and connection between each of us. And therefore, the same idea of not kissing your children in shul and not having the imagery is not having any other connections. It's not like the father's love for a child is anything negative and we keep that out the synagogue. God forbid, no. And in another class, I'll talk about the Jewish view on intimacy, which is not what most people think it is. Both of them are beautiful things. The holiest act a person can do is an intimate connection with their spouse. And loving a child is the analogy used for love of God. So these are beautiful things. But at the synagogue, the focus is to connect with Hashem. The Mechitza, to quote Hasidic feminist Rivka Slonim, she says the Mechitza is not to separate men from women, but to separate both of them onto God. Now, I will see Susie asked a question and about the temple times, which we will do afterwards, because I want to keep to time and we will stay on for questions afterwards. Now, finally to question number 3. We started at 8:07, so we've only got 7 minutes left. So we're going to have to do this one a little bit quickly, but don't you feel, Rabbi, that we should, what's this fear of God? Where does this even come from? Now, a lot of people, the idea of fear of God, there's someone you fear from. And a lot of us have had this relationship with either teachers or parents or rabbis or other experiences where the feelings that are conjured up when we even hear the words fear of God, puts the fear of God into you. I mean, really? If it was really good on its own, wouldn't I, when I want to do it on my own? What about love? Why can't I do it all out of love itself? And in fact, there is a quote, which is a bit weird, interesting actually. It says, think about this. Moses said to the people, fear not, for God has come in order to exalt you, and in order that his fear shall be on your faces, so you shall not sin. What was going on here? It was right before they had, when the receiving of the Torah, the people were afraid. And Moses says, don't fear. Why? Because God's doing this because he wants you to fear. What's going on here? Obviously, the commentaries talk about this, and this is what the idea is. First of all, I'm trying to get something deeper if there's time. If first part of the verse is saying, if your relationship with God is that he scares you and that you're recoiling, that's not what this is all about. Stop, because that's not what the relationship is. This relationship is that there's a different kind of fear. When you have a relationship with someone, you could love them. Now, even love itself, you have love. Now, love, there's immature love, which is, I love that person because they make me feel good. You're not loving that person, you love yourself. You make me feel good. I need love. So when I'm with you, you make me feel good. So therefore I love you. No. Like if there was a rabbi who saw his student really into eating a piece of fish. He says, you love fish. He goes, oh, I love fish. He says, so why did you kill it? Leave it in the sea. He says, you love yourself and you like how fish makes you feel. Sometimes immature love is we love that person for what they give us. That's an immature love. The same thing is with fear. There is an immature fear and there's a mature fear. An immature fear is I'm scared because God may do X to me and God may do Y. Now that is an immature fear. In Judaism, it's called not fear of God, but fear of punishment. That both of those are lower levels. Yes, that can love or fish love can attract you to the other person. Yes, fear of being punished can stop you from doing wrong things. And if that is the basic level that you're holding and that will hold you back from doing something wrong, so be it, but it's far from ideal. A deeper love and a deeper fear are actually dependent on each other. A deeper love and a mature love is when you get to really appreciate who that person is and you love them, not for how they make you feel. You love them because for who they are. And you can only have that appreciation when you really, really know about them. And when more you learn about them, the more you are in awe. And the correct way is the word awe. Imagine you realize that a certain person has been doing such incredible things for you. Okay? Imagine you had an uncle who gave you a tremendous opportunity in life. He worked really hard to get you the right connections and he found you money and he invested with you and you started this business. And the more the business goes on, the more you start realizing what this person has done. At the same time, you will love them because of such appreciation of what they've done, but you will also have this awe. Wow. You will feel small. Look, you'll feel humbled. Now imagine that person calls you up and says, I'm coming to your office in 5 minutes. I want to see how the company is doing. You will fear. You will have this awe. Oh my goodness, I don't want to shame him for all the good that he's done for me. Or if you're in love with your wife and you don't want to, you're going away on a trip and you don't cheat. Why? Because I'm afraid of being caught? Or is it because you love the person so much you don't want to? Your fear is about, you fear the breaking the trust of something so special that you had. What is it? That's also fear. What are you, she's going to catch you. She's going to punish you. Okay, that's immature fear. It means your love isn't that strong either. But real mature love and real mature fear actually go hand in hand. What does that mean? Even if, let's say even if your spouse will never find out, you will lose your feeling of trust that you had. That bond is broken. And that fear is not about getting caught, but about losing something tremendous that you love and that you have. So real love and real awe go hand in hand. So it's not about this fear that we talk about, God-fearing person, that he's afraid that God is going to smite him tomorrow. No, it's about awe. I am in such awe of what God has done to me and the greatness that me, infinitesimal me, God has given me so much, decided to create me, even create me with include me in his purpose in life. And at the same time, and that has made, I'm in awe of that. I feel so small. I definitely don't want to let him down in any way. So that is the idea of love and fear of God. I'm now going to open up to questions. If you'd like to unmute yourselves. Okay, Susie, but we outsourced it all to the temple too, though. No dubbing, etc. Just pay for a carbon. Okay, brilliant question. Okay, so Susie's asking as follows. She says, wait a minute. The idea of prayer is not a new thing. This would happen in the Beit HaMikdash. We didn't even have to pray in those days. We put everything. We went to the temple. There was sacrifices, and there was all outsourced. Then we didn't even pray. So what are you telling me now that we've just outsourced it? Very good question, Susie. And if you want to join in afterwards, once I cover this, if you have further questions, please do. The answer to that question is as follows. Imagine you were living in the time of the temple, and temple's gone. You had Pesach. It was amazing. You went there. They had we spoke about this last week. You had the incredible pageantry and the Korban Pesach, and the next year you're sitting with a matzah and some bitter herbs at home by yourself. You've lost it all. You feel, oh my goodness, this is terrible. Look what we had before. So you have the new idea. But what Judaism in the synagogue was there to replace was to replace those things that we did in the temple. Judaism was always a religion that was practiced personally, at home. In fact, in a way, you're proving my point, because in this time of the temple, we even had less prayer. We didn't even have a synagogue. And we went to the temple in Jerusalem 3 times a year. So how did we stay Jewish? What did it mean to be Jewish then? To be Jewish then was even more home-based than it is today, because you didn't have to go to synagogue 3 times a day. It was always a home-based religion. And in fact, the temple, the Talmud says, the temple, the windows were built not like a normal house where it was to bring in light, the shape this way. The temple windows were facing outwards, that the light of the temple should project outwards, not that the windows bring the natural light in. The temple wasn't the place where we outsourced our religion to. The temple was the place where we drew our energy from, our spiritual energy from, so that it can permeate our lives and all of humanity at home. And today, that is what the synagogue does. And it's a personal journey. We go there one-on-one. We sit there, as we said about Mechitza. It's our personal journey. We connect. And it's that a relationship that we have with God at that time that empowers us later to do it at home. And that's why, by the way, we can pray at home. And in COVID, we've had people not going to synagogue for months. And aside for saying Kaddish, and aside for a few other things, we pretty much managed, because 90% of Judaism is a home-based experience, and therefore experiencing Judaism as a family, with or without the Mechitza, will always be predominantly at home, because most of Jewish experiences are in the home. I hope I've answered your question. Anyone else? Otherwise, we can, we'll meet next week. Is going to be Tisha B'Av, so we'll probably either have, we're working on other programming, but otherwise we will meet in 2 weeks' time. And please feel free to send in your questions. And also, Tuesday night, like I mentioned last week, we have Dina Horowitz, whose husband is Yitzi Horowitz, was diagnosed with ALS, a terrible disease. He's a colleague of mine, much beloved, incredible guy, singer, composer, dancer, rabbi, and he, right now, all his only muscles he has is with his eyes, and his wife has this incredible story of how she found strength and hope in the face of pain. The event is titled ALS Shattered My Dreams, but not my purpose. Join us on Tuesday and see chabadahgs.org/ALS for more information. Thank you very much for joining us, and have Shabbat Shalom. Tomorrow morning, there will also be a quick thought for the week, and that will be live on Facebook.